is Brad Fieldhouse. I have the privilege of one of the hats that I wear here in Los Angeles is I am the managing partner of the Barnabas Los Angeles group. It's a marketplace group of business folks, engineers, accountants, lawyers, folks like that, that are looking to engage their skills, as we've been talking about today, in kingdom projects. So a couple of things about this group that are going to set up sort of what we're going to be talking about. We're going to sort of take this sort of God at work, kingdom activity, and we're going to stay in a lane here with my distinguished panelists here, and we're going to talk about the issue as we've begun to sort of jump into this with our different entities, addressing the issue of human trafficking, which has sort of come up today as well. But we're going to tell you a little bit about a couple aspects of it, as well as what we're doing in collaboration with each other. The Barnabas group, being a participant in this, is essentially kingdom leaders. One of the things that they realize as business people, which I want to encourage you with, is that it's true that all pastors are kingdom leaders, but not all kingdom leaders are pastors. And so if you're an accountant, how in the world do you take what God has entrusted you that you're using in your day-to-day business to sort of, be a kingdom person in business, but how could that be leveraged further for causes that reflect God's heart for Los Angeles and the areas that he might want us to get involved in? So that's the first thing they do. And typically what happens and why people are part of our group and what we're trying to get involved in is typically where that sort of translates is they end up getting invited to chicken dinners for nonprofits and are told to bring their checkbook. And that's pretty much, which they should do, but that's typically where it ends. And so what are you to do when it's not just about writing checks to support nonprofits, but how could you employ those skill sets in some creative ways? So we as the Barnabas group are trying to get involved in a cause, and the number one requested cause by my Barnabas members has been human trafficking. What in the world can we do to get around some of these atrocities? We realize that it's a business, frankly, a very profitable business. How can we bring business know-how and business skills to fight this cause, in addition to literally praying that God's Spirit would move and bring transformation at every level? But what can we do to employ? So just some stats, and then I'll turn it over to my panelists here. Some of the things that we're learning, and again, we've been doing this for about 6 months under a collaborative called Care 18. It stands for some things, but trafficking is a big cause, but we've been focusing on the human trafficking of minors in Los Angeles. A couple things that are stats that I can show you the documentation behind these, but 72% of trafficking victims in California are actually California residents. So while there is an international dynamic, we're focusing and we're looking at actually most of those being trafficked in LA, particularly in sex trafficking, are California residents. It is a local problem. The average age of American children brought into the sex trade, the average age is 13 years old. Is when they're brought into the sex trafficking. Trafficking reports that the typical trafficker and pimp can sell an individual for 10 to 15 times a night. Typically that translates that a young girl or boy would be raped about 6,000 times over the course of her being sold. And lastly is that gangs and other criminal enterprises have learned that the sex trade in particular provides higher profits and a return that you can reuse the product over and over versus selling drugs or gang activity of different sorts. So it's part of our collaboration is we have, a lot of them are Christians, but a lot of people that work with FBI, Homeland Security, law enforcement of various sorts, nonprofits, business folks, on and on and on are part of this collaborative. We'll show you a video and a little bit about what we're doing. Let me introduce first panelist to my left here. His name's Matt Bates, and he's a colleague of mine, and he's going to talk a little bit about collaboration.
So speaking about marketplace leaders and trafficking, one of the things that business leaders that they recognize about trafficking is that it requires a collaborative response. And they recognize that very often there's a huge gap between the collaborative impulse and an effective implementation of a collaborative. So we've heard a lot in other sessions about churches and nonprofits wanting to collaborate together. And that impulse is good. It's essential. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient to end human trafficking in Los Angeles. You need a structure. One of the things that we say is that it takes a system to defeat a system. And if trafficking, and it is a multi-billion-dollar industry, that didn't happen by accident. There's technology, there is distribution, there is marketing, there is sales, there is anything that would exist in a billion-dollar business exists in trafficking. And so one of the things that business leaders can look at when they look at a cause like this is they say, wait a second, we need a system that's going to defeat this system. It can't be just a series of one-off service projects. Again, those are necessary, but they're not sufficient to solve the problem. It's necessary to have more folks at large in the community, civic groups, faith community, nonprofit organizations focused on this cause. It's necessary, but that's not sufficient in and of itself. They need to be working together, and they need to be working in such a way that they can end the problem, driving towards a solution. One other thought that I'll share is in a previous job, I was a foundation officer, and so I traveled around giving money to nonprofit organizations, and I noticed what the statistics show, which is that in general, there's heroic people that are doing tremendous things in the nonprofit sector, but they're generally struggling and isolated, and they're not connected in a continuum to provide solutions to any particular cause, particularly a complex cause like trafficking or things like homelessness, emancipated foster youth, jails to the streets, on and on and on. Causes that require a multi-sector response. And just a statistic that's true, half the nonprofits in the United States were started in the last 20 years. So if you think about all the nonprofits that exist, half of them were started within the last 20 years, and the number that gets started each year is just skyrocketing. Because, and there's two ways to look at that. One is, and I saw this as a foundation officer, is that the default position for most people is that they don't look and see what other people are doing in the space, and they don't connect themselves in a gap. So they're very often duplicating services, doing what somebody else is already doing, and they don't look to well, maybe I can empower somebody else. Maybe I can partner with somebody else to help them, because they're already ahead of me in this. Their impulse is to go do something on their own. That's one way to look at it, and that's true. But the other way to look at it is that there's lots of people who are wanting to help, and there's lots of people who are wanting to do great things. And so one of the things that we try to work on in this collaborative is providing the system and the structure whereby people can work together in a collaborative, coordinated effort, not only within the church and not only within Christian nonprofits, but within other sectors of society, law enforcement, homeland security, immigration, all the people, city and county government, all the people that need to be at the table, get them all together so that we can solve the problem. One of the collaborative partners is Jen, and then Kevin's going to talk about TogetherLA, and so they'll show more about that. But from our perspective, that's one thing that we recognize as critical and that the Barnabas members recognize is that we need to coordinate our efforts and that we need to have a system and a structure in order to solve problems like this.
Thanks, Matt. Jen is one of those champions. She's one of those ones that, from a collaborative point of view, what's critical is you learn from the experts. You listen to the survivors who know what they're talking about, and you position them as knowledge experts. And you listen to those that are leading the nonprofits, and you say, we don't even know what we're talking about. So help us, and you lead the way, and we'll come behind you. We'll fill in gaps, and we'll bring some of those other necessary things. So as Jen runs after-hours ministry, table in the back. Point us, give us some insights, and give us some signs of hope.
Yeah, thank you so much. We are really encouraged to see so many wanting to get involved, and just like Matt was saying, that there is such a great need for collaborating and working together. And we're a primarily outreach ministry, actually on the street and working with the women, and we need our partners. We're constantly networking with people who can provide resources and care when those women reach back out to us and say, whether it's I want to sit down and have coffee, or I need help getting my ID, or I want job training, or to be in a safe house. So that collaboration is so important for us to be able to do what we do and do it well. And for us as after hours ministry, again, we're an outreach ministry primarily. We really have a heart to approach this holistically, meaning we reach out to the women or those who are prostituted, because sometimes those are men or children. And so our heart is to reach out to those who are being prostituted, but also to reach out to the perpetrator, whether it's the person who is doing the selling or the buying. We think that, one, the gospel is for everyone, and while we want to seek justice, the message of the gospel is one of justice and one of redemption. And so we have to have those two messages side by side. And so our heart is to reach really anyone who's involved in trafficking and prostitution. And also we feel that for those who are doing the selling or those who are doing the buying, if there's going to be significant long-term change, it's going to start with the heart, and it's going to be a transformation because of Jesus. And so that's where our heart is in that. It stems all the way back from our foundation. The couple that started this organization, she had come out of a life of prostitution, and he had come out of a life of working for a pimp. So here's a man who used to work for a pimp and was involved in this. He gave his life to Jesus and is one of the godliest men I know, and incredible fruit has come from his life. And so we just are hopeful, we're really hopeful for what God can do. We've seen it in our own lives, that he has shown us our worth and our value. He has rescued us, and we have freedom, and we long to see that for those that we're reaching out to. I did want to give a few practical ways that people can get involved. Again, we're talking about how can we as the church step up and be involved in it. Maybe for you it's not going to be going out on a Friday night at 2 a.m., and that's totally fine. But maybe it is. We'd love to have you come join us at one of our trainings. But definitely get educated, understand the issue, sign up for a newsletter and begin praying for different organizations. You can also, there's a human trafficking hotline. It's a national hotline. Just being familiar with that is really helpful. Sometimes you just have questions. I don't know, this situation didn't look right. You can call anytime, 24 hours a day, and they can help you know what to do next. Even if you feel like, this is kind of silly, a lot of times just make the call and ask the question and see if there might be a next step for you to take, whether it's calling local law enforcement or doing something different. But they'll let you know, and so it doesn't have to be that scary. You can read a book. There's a lot of great books out there. Not for Sale, Scars and Stilettos, Good News About Injustice, just to name a few. Mentor youth. Our foster care system has a huge need. A lot of our young women are coming out of the foster care system. They're very vulnerable. So providing foster care, providing mentorship, coming alongside families that are already doing foster care is a great way to support this cause. And again, these are all, ways that are, you can use your gifts and your talents to step in. And then just another thing is changing our language. So not labeling people, so we wouldn't call a young woman who's being sold, I would not call her a prostitute. I would refer to her as someone being prostituted or a prostituted woman. When I put a label on someone, that can cause years of sort of enslavement almost to that label in a way. And so we want to be careful with our language. And then just, if you think about outreach, we get scared and we're like, I don't know what to say. And I feel the same way. I've always felt the same way. And you just are intentional and you're vulnerable and you realize that we're all level at the cross, and we share in our humanity and our need for Christ, and that's the best way to approach these relationships when you want to do outreach.
Thanks, Jen. Before I share the video, one of the things that I want to explain a little bit about Carry Teen as a subset. One of the things that the business voices in our collaborative have been saying is that to tackle such a massive thing, it's hard to measure results. So we've really created an 18-month, it's also the age that we're focusing on, under 18, but it's an 18-month collaborative. And CARE stands for 4 things. Communication, we're trying to align messaging. So if any of you have skill sets in messaging, come talk to us. Advocacy, some of the legal voices are saying, how come bills get not pushed through on some of the justice laws point of reference? So if some of you are in that lens, come talk to us. That's the A for advocacy. R is for restoration. Holistic restoration on all sides. It's great to see in our collaborative meetings both men and women. A lot of women are involved in this. We need more men involved from your churches so we can stand up realizing that the demand is why there's the supply. And then lastly is engagement, ways to engage faith communities, business owners as employers, on and on and on and on. Some of the goals we've set in the past 6 months is we have over 400 entities represented in our collaborative, and we've, in the past 6 months, 29 churches, 47 nonprofits, dozens of businesses, more than 20 government agencies. I described those earlier. We were able to raise just under $1 million to put in front of the experts and say, what would you do if you had resources to put in best practices and identify gaps? So in each of those 4 areas, we're putting resource behind it. I'm gonna show you a quick video. It's a couple minutes long that just sort of frames the project.
As a survivor of human trafficking, I understand the devastation that this crime has on the victim and the family members and loved ones of that victim. I see it as robbery. Robbing young men and women of their true value, their true purpose, their true identity, their true potential, their true selves.
The average person can't wrap their brain around this, because to be able to say that one human being is sexually exploiting another human being for the purposes of financial gain, and the person that's being sexually exploited doesn't keep any of the money, it's hard to understand this concept. And you have some men out there that have a sexual appetite for small children that are willing to pay a lot of money for that. We had a 10-year-old, our youngest case was a 10-year-old, and obviously she didn't understand the value of $1, and the pimp ended up giving her $5. So arguably, she lost her virginity for $5.
We've had kids that were born and raised in every area of Orange County and Los Angeles, and sold in every area of Orange County and Los Angeles. The most common age that a child is trafficked is 11 years old, the first time, 11. These are kids that are sold between 5 times and 45 times every single night. So you have a human being that's been dehumanized down to a product for sale that is being used over and over and over. Not just sold by the trafficker, but used by society, used by, most often, men. There are thousands of children within Orange County and Los Angeles right now that need rescue, that need victim services, that need to be seen and advocated for and protected by our society. You know, the perpetrators in our world are very quick to go out and search for them. And I want to live in a community where we have the protectors rise up and go out and search for these kids, because these are the lost ones, and these are the ones that, as a whole community, that we need to stand up and fight for.
There's a great injustice occurring here. It seems to me that a lot of people have turned their head or have blind eyes to what's going on right here in the United States and in our own neighborhoods. And we have to do something about it. And someone needs to take the bull by the horns, and I believe that I'm one of those someones that needs to fight this fight. TogetherLA is a collaborative that is bringing together law enforcement, politicians, government officials, NGOs, ministries, business people to battle this injustice and to come together collectively to help each other accomplish the goal. The goal is to end human trafficking here in the Los Angeles area.
We have set some pretty wide and pretty audacious goals for Care 18 over the next 18 months. And 18 has a double meaning. 18 means 18 and under, meaning minors, specifically minors in Southern California, as well as it's an 18th month program, because we have found in collaboratives, the more finite, the more refined, the more tangible your goals are, the better chance you have of actually achieving them.
Our job is to enhance the partnerships that exist around the table and identify gaps and raise resource, create awareness, get more people to the party to undergird these ideas that these collaborative partners are coming up with.
Collaboration means everything, because law enforcement is not going to be able to, nor can we solve this problem by ourselves.
Edmund Burke said, all that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good men and women to do nothing.
If the city does not come together to combat this issue, it will not be stopped.
It's not just in Asia, it's not just in Africa, it's not across the oceans, it's right here in our backyard. It's time to care.
Special thanks to some of the media folks, the marketplace media folks that helped us put this together. I'm going to give the last word. Kevin Malone, he's batting cleanup today. Former general manager of the Dodgers, also a brother in the Lord, was one of the catalysts that actually helped call this together. So I'm going to give him the last word in the last 2 minutes.
Thank you. I got to stand up. I don't know if you're not, but I'm outraged that this is happening in our own backyard. I don't know about you, but what if it was your daughter, your sister, your granddaughter that was being raped 10 to 15 times a day? Would you care then? It's time to care now. We are called to care about what breaks God's heart. That should break our heart, what breaks God's heart. If it doesn't break your heart that a little girl and little boy in LA is being raped 10 to 15 times a day by 10 or 15 different pigs, then something's wrong. We know God's heart for the children. We need to do something about it. It is time to care. Care18.org, what we're doing is collaborating. Anybody that wants to be a part of this. As Brad said, I was general manager of the Dodgers. I put teams together. I was blessed to win a couple of championships not here in LA. If I did, I'd probably still be the GM, but of course, but God had a better plan for me. He really put me in the major leagues, and that's to fight for our children. So my call to you today is get involved. As I went out and looked for major league players, for championship players, to put together all-star teams, that's what it takes. We need people that have the talents and the skills. Each one of you can do something to fight this fight and make a difference. We'd love for you to be a part of the collaborative, care18.org. You have a skill, you have a tool, you've been blessed in a certain way, and you can make a difference. I see right now, looking out there, there's some all-stars sitting out there. You need to get engaged. You need to care. It is time to care. So I thank you for the opportunity to be here. We appreciate for you to be here on a Saturday afternoon. There's something going on in your heart. God's calling you. God's got a plan for you to get involved in this. So I thank you for being here, and we'll be around afterwards out in back. And if you have any questions, let us know. But there's some all-stars here. Join the team, care18.org, make a difference, and let's put an end to human trafficking in Los Angeles. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this message. Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Learn more at biola.edu.